going on? What's going on? What's going on? Let's have a conversation about bias. Oh, I know something I forgot to do. Sorry about that. What's going on? Let's see how far we last this time. See how far we last this time. Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the building. What's going on? Yes, I do live streams. You haven't caught my other live streams that I've done, Diego? Yes, I do live streams. Oh, yeah, I hope I don't get censored tonight either, Peter. You're right. What's going on, Denard? What's going on, Bones? Diego, Sadish. What's going on, Anthony? What's going on, Reese Eater? What's going on? You said, have I talked about the ATF picking up that guy in Florida? No, I haven't. You said, hello, you're a fan from Arctic Norway. What's going on? Appreciate that. Watching from Sacramento, California. Your page is awesome on Facebook. You must be talking about my commentary. What's going on, LA? I wish you could come to Milwaukee, Wisconsin and teach a firearms class. I'm going to start to travel and start to move around. And I said that before. You said you live in Korea and watch the video. Well, be careful of Corona for sure, for sure. Thank you very much for that. I will start to move around. I love guns, so that's why I love your channel. Well, thank you, appreciate that. Um, let's talk about bias. Uh, so yes, you all have seen me post up videos, things like that, about the George Floyd case. Uh, it would be nice if we had a honest conversation about bias. I've kind of hinted to that the first time I tried to go live, and it did what it did. Neither here nor there. I think it's a conversation that still needs to be had uh, because I am biased. We all are. And I think it is extremely troubling. And I'm monitoring your comments as well. So I would love that you chimed in. And we are going to talk about parts of the George Floyd case, things like that. Uh, but I think it's important to talk about bias and how we're affected by it. I think that when we allow other people to define what something is for us, and then we fall into that definition, that we do ourselves a disservice. I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not going to say I'm going to be the first to admit, because I'm not going to be the first to admit there have been other people that have made these admissions. I'm biased. And let me tell you what I'm biased by. First of all, let's even go into the definition of what is uh bias as it's defined. What's going on, Christy? Christy Mayberry, what's going on? You're back. Yay. Let's let's hope we last this time, Christy. We're trying again. Oh my god. Christy, your comments were awesome. All right, so bias as defined by Merriam-Webster, we talked about that before, an inclination of temperament or outlook, especially a personal and sometimes unreasoned judgment, prejudice. Then you got other definitions of bias. Usually, bias has a lot of negative connotation behind it, but I think that we can be positively and negatively biased. And I think that's based on the intention behind that bias, right? Just like when people say profiling is wrong. Um, if you're an experienced, yeah, we got this. If you're an experienced police officer or you're an experienced person who whose job depends on sizing people's up, yes, Arte, 0311, absolutely. And 0311 probably is what you're billing for infantry in the Marine Corps. Thank you for your service. Is bias derived from experience or perspective? I think so. I agree. I agree. You come into this world of tabula rasa, a blank slate, you know, and we then pick up biases by our education and then our experience. When you let's just say policing, we'll keep it there because this is obviously talking about the George Floyd case. When you go into law enforcement, into the academy, there are things you learn in the academy, right? And even that varies depending upon where you go. What's going on, Andrew? How are you? Even that depends on where you go, because not all academies are the same. Some are shorter, some are longer, some are more intense, some are less intense, some are part time, some are full time. It just depends on where you go. And when you look at these things, you go into law enforcement and, you get your training that's general, and then you get your specific training. You're training by jurisdiction, some of the laws and the processes and procedures where you are. Some training is augmented to include certain things, some training takes away certain things, you know, and then you go out into the field. And any field training officer will tell you, for the most part, whatever you learn in the academy, keep that, but put it in your back pocket because out here in the field, you're going to learn, and what you've learned in the academy is going to be tested. You know, now let's get to these biases, but let's get to before we get to the biases, let's get to the jury of one's peers. Uh, the George Floyd case, or not case, I don't want to say the George Floyd incident with Derek Chauvin. Uh, if he would have a jury of his peers, what would that jury consist of? What would that jury consist of? I think that the jury should consist of police officers or people who have law enforcement training. I know some people will say, well, then that means you all would definitely find him not guilty. That's not necessarily the case. You know, uh, if you get law enforcement officers from different jurisdictions, then you might have a healthy mix of experience. We look at law enforcement, and there's bias in law enforcement, and we're not talking about the bias of people or law enforcement attitudes towards the citizenry. That's one category of perceived or actual bias. But we can look at just bias in the occupation of law enforcement. Law enforcement is an umbrella title, right? You've got those that are game and wildlife law enforcement. You've got those that are city law enforcement. Then in city, what are we talking about? Are we talking about small city, big city? Are we talking about, rural county or rural city? Then you've got your county. And let's just say in Cook County, you've got Cook County sheriffs in Illinois who are deputy sheriffs who do court services. They don't patrol the streets at all. They do court services. Then you got some in other functions too. And then you've got your corrections officers. And then you've got your Cook County Sheriff's Police. Pull all of them, and you will say each of them, except for the sheriff's police, I would say about 90% of the sheriff's police were corrections officers first. So sheriff's police can talk about, what it's like to be in the jail and not have a gun, and how you can survive that environment, then to get out into the streets and have a whole different appreciation of policing because they've been in an environment as law enforcement where they could not carry a gun on the inside and had to work with verbal judo and other kind of skills, so that they can survive that environment. And then that transitions out to being a police officer in the streets, which, in my opinion, arguably might make a better police officer. That's neither here nor there. We can argue that point. Okay. But there is a bias that exists in law enforcement in terms of the occupation. I was a part of one group, which I'm no longer a part of. I chose to get out. Uh, but I was a part of one group where there was a question as to whether or not corrections officers are even considered law enforcement. And absolutely they are considered law enforcement, but there is a difference between street patrol and then working in the jails. And sad to say, people treat corrections officers like they don't matter. They very well do matter because it takes a different type of skill to work in an environment where you have no firearm, you don't have any of those tools. And then even in corrections, there's bias because in Los Angeles, you might be able to have your PR-27 or your baton and other pepper spray and other types of non-lethal options. But in state corrections in Illinois, you have none of those things. Only the white shirts, the supervisors, or the sergeants have pepper spray. You only got a radio, keys, and the gift of gab. You know, there's bias amongst that. Let's look at state law enforcement. The Illinois State Police. You can go down to Springfield, Illinois, the capital of the state of Illinois, and go to the academy and come out of the academy 6 months, 9 months, whatever, and be a master of the Illinois Vehicle Code. But put you in an urban street such as Chicago, and if you don't have a partner or another trooper, or you're from that background where they toughen you up, Chicago will scare the heck out of you. You see what I'm saying? So, there's a difference between that and then say less of federal law enforcement. You've heard J. Edgar Hoover, the former director of the FBI, that said, the FBI is a law enforcement organization. Yeah, Frank, you're right. Locked up with them for 8 hours. The law enforcement, and I'm going to show your comment because that was a good comment right there, Arte. And I'm going to read your other one too. But you got federal law enforcement. You heard J. Edgar Hoover, former director of the FBI, who said that federal law enforcement, the FBI is a law enforcement investigative agency, not a police agency. And I think it was wonderful that he said that because they do investigate. It's not their job to police. They do have a police department, but usually that's force protection, stuff like that of their buildings and stuff like that. The J. Edgar Building in Washington D.C. and other FBI offices. Like you go to Chicago on Roosevelt, or in Chicago on Roosevelt, you see the FBI police at that gate. So there's bias in law enforcement in terms of who would do the job better, who could do the job, what you should do. I look at a lot of these comments on my page. I have a healthy degree of followers in my page or on my page, Facebook. And, I get some law enforcement officers who will say, well, what you saw Derek Chauvin do was just totally uncalled for. And, you're entitled to your opinion. You really are. But if you haven't experienced anything remotely close to what he did on that day, you need to be honest about your bias. When we talk about bias, right? Those who define things for us make us seem as though bias is bad. Now, there are kinds of biases that are bad, but then you have bias because of your ignorance. Those of you all who follow me, and by the way, don't just watch this, like it, subscribe, share it. It's a wonderful conversation. We got to have something like this, and we're lasting at 13 minutes. Cindy, Christy, I hope you're here. We've survived. Let's keep going before the YouTube gods shut us down. But even when you look at ignorance, for those of you all who have followed me, you know that I talk about self-inflicted ignorance and innocent ignorance, right? Innocent ignorance within the scope of the context that is your daily life. You have no need whatsoever, at least not an immediate need, to know about anything relative to this subject matter or this topic. You have no reason to know, right? Yeah, who hasn't seen The Police? But to learn about Graham versus Connor, Arizona versus Johnson, Miranda versus Arizona, Terry versus Ohio, the Fourth Amendment verbatim, any of those things that law enforcement should know. That's another topic, training, right? Anything that law enforcement should know, you have no reason to, because it's not in the purview of what you do. You see what I'm saying? It's without in the purview of what you do. And Frank, yes, profiling. You got to profile to a point. Everybody profiles. I've proven that many times in my classes, right? But that's innocent ignorance. You have no reason to know. And it's irritating, not gonna lie. Okay, I said we're gonna have an honest conversation. It's irritating when an innocently ignorant person tries to attack you on your understandable bias. Like, I'm biased by people with comments that want to attack my views And my views are based on the collection of my education and experience, not because I'm some black guy trying to be an Uncle Tom pandering to my majority white followers. Let's ask ourselves, how did we get that following? Well, my occupation as a former cop, military, firearms instructor, those things appeal to the white community. So, of course, I'm going to get a healthy degree of followers. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to get a healthy degree of followers in that, and it comes with the territory. I don't forget who I am, but I am, I don't want to say jaded in certain respects, but I am formed. We all are. The education and experience that we have. Mike, using your analogy, every case should be tried in front of like people. Absolutely, Bones Mega, you are absolutely correct. And so when we look at that, there's the innocent ignorance. I don't want to get off track. And then we got self-inflicted ignorance. Like you have every reason to need to know, but you are just not wanting to know. Like Chris Rock even said it best. Some people just love to not know. Like the position of self-inflicted ignorance allows you to have, in certain cases, plausible deniability, allows you to have the perspective. Thank you very much, Robbie. Hope I'm saying Robbie or Roby. I don't want to get that messed up. Thank you so much for that, Robbie. And thank you for your service as well. Uh, it allows people to maintain a position of I don't know, so I can have a reason to be mad. Some people love to be mad, you know. And when we look at the case like George Floyd, this is a case that I'm gonna say you should be watching. You really should, because it isn't too often that we get to see gavel to gavel coverage of a controversial case like this. You know, we don't either we don't get to see it, or maybe I'm just not paying attention because I'm too busy doing stuff. I don't know. But we don't get to see that. You saw it, everything from voir dire to the rulings on the motions, and now we're watching where we're day 3 or 4 of the trial. Opening statements, just hearing the shenanigans, if you will, uh that's going on in the courtroom. And I just want you to understand that I am biased. And anybody, I do have a podcast, Derek. I should be recording for this, and I will record for it. My podcast is On the Mic with Mike. You can go to Apple, Spotify, the Google Play Store, whatever the case may be, and look up On the Mic with Mike. I just resurrected my podcast thanks to my Facebook ban for 30 days. So I just resurrected it. I will be talking about this, so go look it up, On the Mic with Mike. I do have that. But I think that when we look at this case, uh, I just happen to say I like. Oh, I gotta stop. Excel detail. I used to be like that. I prefer not to know something and not to worry about it. I really think it was a case of negligence by the police. I really don't see too much ill intent. Okay, I can appreciate your honesty. I can appreciate that. And thank you very much, Derek Farham. Thank you very much. I think that when we're looking at this case, I think that this is a case where it's, if you have been listening so far, do yourself a favor and stop wanting them to rush this case, because you can rush it and miss important details. Because officer or former officer Derek Chauvin does not have a jury of his peers, the the state and the defense has to tell a story. They have to. I got to refer to the great Johnny Cochran. Say what you want, but Johnny Cochran said it best. Evidence doesn't win the day. Juries like stories. Juries help them make connections with the stories. It is the job of the defense attorney to tell the story better than the other side tells theirs. And I was distracted by your comments because you guys are writing some great comments. I'm going to read that. Christy Mayberry, I'm all into court cases. I've watched Casey Anthony's, Jodi Arias's, George Zimmerman's. George Zimmerman's was a great trial. I had opinions about that too. I'm telling you, when it comes down to these cases, because I understand law enforcement, because I've not only I've not only been in law enforcement, I have degrees in law enforcement, a master's degree. I'm a former adjunct. I taught criminal justice. I taught criminology. I taught police procedure. I taught corrections. I taught police psychology in the colleges. These are things that, I'm not just a practitioner in the field, I'm an academic too. And I'm still stupid. And I'm still stupid because I can always learn. I crave, and I'm often willing to be tried, never denied, and willing to be tried again. If you know, you know. Here we go. That having been said, let me get some of your other comments. Here we go. Uh, Cameron Mitchell, since you work closely with a police academy, talk about some of the things learning defensive tactics. Yes, we can get to that, but I still want to stick on the topic of bias, but that's going to be another topic for another discussion. Thank you, Cameron, and remind me of that too. Peter Dewey, 14-year-old law enforcement officer here, and this case will have a huge impact on where law enforcement goes from here. I've been watching every minute of this case as well as the jury selection. I have been too, Peter. Peter, oh my God, is the jury a bunch of I think that this jury is tainted. I think that you have some that have said that they can, render a fair opinion, if you will. Uh, but they got in it to find him guilty. Remember during the OJ case when they found OJ not guilty, and one of the jurors who was a Black Panther member turned around and did this? Now, OJ don't know nothing about the goddamn Black Panthers, but he turned around and did this because they were trying to get the system back for what happened when those 4 officers in Los Angeles got acquitted of beating Rodney King. You know what I'm saying? And so Johnny Cochran was smart in using the racial tones that was going on at the time to his advantage. Plus, Mark Furman lying on the stand about never saying the N-word did not make it better. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm looking for is prosecutorial blunders. I got to get to my Facebook page because I've been doing a play-by-play on my Facebook page. I want to read this last comment. We're going to look at those things, and we're not going to get off the topic of bias because I still think this is still important to talk about because I am going to tell you I am positively biased by my experience. Positively biased by my experience. The minute I sit there, and I remember one of the first things I was told. I was told when the handcuffs go on, Cameron, since you want to talk about defensive tactics, when the handcuffs go on, use of force stops until I got kicked in the mouth with a person that had handcuffs on. That right there is where your education and experience intersect. And you find out, hey, a person with handcuffs can still whoop your ass. A person with handcuffs, if they get in the right position and their legs get a hold of you, they can take you. They can take you down. There are so many different things. I have a video. I have a video where I have a young man who I go to my TikTok page. I'm gonna post it tonight again. Go to my Instagram page. Both of them have a name. Yes, Mike said it. I have a video of a young man. I put handcuffs on him and he did this. His hands, just like that. There have been plenty of videos of people buying into Cameron. I get it. Stop. Just listen. Buying into what is taught into the academy and then learning something from experience. Now, Cameron, you said, but they got 4 officers. They got 4 officers. They got 4 officers. Cameron, you, my friend, are biased. You are. And you're biased by your innocent ignorance. And so I have to apologize because in the past, sometimes our ego gets connected to our position, right? To where when our position falls, our ego falls with it. And I have no problem attacking, but I have to change my tactics as a teacher, as an instructor, right? Because I will tell you this. You are innocently ignorant by your experience. You're not stupid. You're very smart. You're just ignorant to the fact. You assume because of the oath of office they take, because of the belief in what you feel about the police's ability. Jeff Chudwin, master firearms instructor, attorney, former chief of police, and well known instructor, has a great saying to this: the military trains for wars they may never fight. Police fight wars every day and rarely train. And that depends on which department you deal with, you go to. But I will tell you this: just because you have 4 officers does not mean they all have the same skill set. They all are in shape. You have some departments, they don't even require a physical fitness test beyond what it takes to get in and stay in and graduate from the academy. I, as a firearms instructor, before I became a civilian firearms instructor, I was a police firearms instructor. I still maintain being that today. You'll be surprised that police actually hit 25% of what they shoot at. But you all civilians see that 25%. So that 25% to you is 100%, when in fact it's only 25%. You see what I'm saying? And so when you look at that, just because there were 4 officers, you got 4 perspectives, 4 varying personalities. I've had partners that have not had my back. And then you learn by experience that you have to be great. You have to be great by yourself. Now, Dominique Simon asked a question: in your professional opinion, when should the use of force have stopped? Exactly when it did. Sorry, I don't have the same opinions or beliefs that Dominic. You asked that question, I got it. You have to keep posting it, okay? I don't have the same experience you do, right? My education and experience, plus watching the whole 37-minute video, the video that went viral, makes it seem like Derek was on his knee and neck by himself. But when you take a look at the whole 37-minute video, they all were on him. Somebody else asked a question. Let me get to it. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, share. JP Stokes, I just don't know why they pulled George out the car. Who cares if he was having a panic attack? Getting him back out of the police vehicle only increases the chances of something going wrong. JP Stokes, it is ever more evident that you did not watch the 37-minute video. Had you watched the trial, which I urge you, shouts out to Law and Crime Network. I love those guys. Go back and watch the day 1, day 2. I say probably day 2 and today. Day 2 and today's testimony. Sorry about that. Go back and watch day 2, day 3, and today's testimony. Day 4. Okay. You will see the full video. And I think day 3 would be the better because you see the lieutenant testifying, and there's all of the officers' videos, and they introduce them, they offer them into evidence, they publish them, and you get to watch the whole thing all the way up to that moment where he has his body on him. You need to watch that because then you will understand that they tried to get him in the car. The only reason why the officer goes around and opens the door is to do what I have done plenty of times in my career: get in the back seat and try to grab this person and pull them in. I've done that plenty of times, except my guy didn't die. My lady didn't die. I've had people, they've kicked out the back windows before there were bars on the windows. I had one person escape out the back window with cuffs. We're on the scene. We didn't extract them out, but we got them in the back. You feel that when they're in the back seat of the car and you got that partition that's steel or in the back, you think they can't get out those windows. One prisoner showed me, she got out those windows and she was able to slip her cuffs and she was gone. So I am biased positively by my education and experience. That's something that you all don't see. But it isn't like you can't see it, you just choose not to see it. When you watch the Fox show, Cops, when it used to come on, when you watch, and I'm going to go old school, Real Stories of the Highway Patrol, when you watch live TV, when you watch, what's that, I'm Sheriff John Bonnell, when you watch him, there have been plenty of cop shows, plenty of videos on YouTube that show you when things go wrong. They show you when things go wrong. Okay. Robbie, here we go. I've been following the trial and wonder why Officer Chauvin was still on top of Floyd after Floyd passed out. Mike, in your experience, have you known a suspect to regain conscious and be combative? In my experience, I have seen a person play possum and then get up and start to fight. I've seen it. And see, that's the problem. If you watch the full video from the beginning of the traffic stop all the way to the time where he's on the pavement, he was acting up the whole time. He was screaming the whole time. In my experience, I've been a corrections officer, I've been a police officer, I've been a detective, I've been a corporal, I've been a sergeant, I've been a lieutenant. I've been in these lines of work, right? I've had use of force issues, right? And I'm jaded positively by trusting a person. When you learn about the different levels of force, you got your active resistors, you got your passive resistors. The passive resistor is probably the most dangerous because they're playing to your psyche to get you to drop your guard, to make you think they're going to comply. And then they flip out. These things happen. And it's like, I'm biased because of my experience. So I'm not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. And that's the thing with qualified immunity getting ready to be done away, right? With qualified immunity and police officers getting ready to be handcuffed even more now than ever before, with bans and certain things like that that's getting ready to be instrumented to where you can't carry high capacity magazines and eliminating almost the ability to be able to defend yourself. Anybody gonna come save you? You gotta save you. Wait till you have to make a citizen's arrest because things got so out of hand, no one's coming. Then you will start to get the experience. And see, that's what I think. I think that because police officers are mandated by law to respond to certain things or otherwise they'd be in trouble, that you can't let them eat the cake they want. They want the cake of officer, back off. Officer, you're doing too much. And try as we might to educate, hey, this is this is not what you think this is gonna be. It's gonna be way worse. You think this guy is compliant. But here's this. When there's an active scene, I don't have the time to teach. I don't have the time to explain. I don't have the time to do those things. The young lady who was the firefighter, the young lady who was the firefighter, she had spent all that time talking, right? All that time talking to the doggone George, not George Floyd, but I almost said George Zimmerman. All that time talking to Derek Chauvin. You know what she could have been doing? She could have been calling the firehouse. She could have been calling 911. You see what I'm saying? She could have been calling 911. You spent all that time. You see someone in distress, or you believe to be in distress. You're trying to verbalize to the police officer, check for a pulse. You're trying to verbalize this and that. Get on the phone and call. Here we go. Cameron Mitchell. Was it her responsibility? Bruh, she's a firefighter. She's a firefighter. What do you mean, was it her responsibility? Right? If I'm a mandated reporter, I'm mandated by law to report certain things, whether I want to or whether I don't. So if Derek didn't care about George Floyd's life, no, I didn't say, no, Cameron, you missed it. I didn't say anything about calling 911 on the police. I said call 911, excuse me, to get the fire department to respond. Guess who called for the fire department? I think it was one of the cops who asked for the and then she testified to that, the dispatcher, that one of the cops asked for the fire department to respond code 3. No, everyone was not responding. Go back and watch the video, Cameron. You're jaded by your innocent ignorance. You're jaded by your innocent ignorance. 2 EMTs testified. I remember the guy who testified today. I remember that. I watched that. Okay. But how sooner could paramedics have gotten there? How sooner could they have gotten there if the firefighter spent less time attacking the police officer? Don't get me wrong. She felt she had the need to do it. That's fine, right? But how fast could they have gotten there if you would have said, "Hey, this is off-duty firefighter such and such. I'm here and I need the fire department to respond to a man who appears to be in respiratory distress. Have them come to 38th in Chicago." You see what I'm saying? And so they might have escalated that call. And I believe the medics called for the fire department when it was upgraded to code 3 for EMS. I get it, Peter, but I'm talking about that firefighter on scene, right? That's what I'm talking about, the firefighter on scene. And so Officer Tutal wasn't wrong when he said, well, if you're a firefighter, you should know better. And what does he mean by that? You know not to interfere into this until we get the scene secure. That's what people don't understand about law enforcement. In watching that 37-minute video, I am biased. Let me tell you what I'm biased by. I'm not only just a former cop, I'm also a nonviolent crisis intervention instructor, certified by the Crisis Prevention Institute. I'm also a certified anger management specialist, certified by the National Anger Management Association. And the one thing that I can say is that a lot of what I do is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you're right, Dominique. She assumed that the police would have the same urgency for his safety. And that's why you need not assume, you need to take action, right? Take action. But I will sit here and, okay, let me read your comment. Bones Mega. If all officers were allowed to restrain someone until they pass out or become unresponsive, death would be the norm. During an arrest, force should have stopped once he stopped resisting. That's not true. That is not, well, that last statement that you made is not true. That is not true. And my answer is biased against yours. You are biased by the lack of your experience. I am biased by my experience. Okay, here we go. People, again, will stop resisting just to get people off of them so they can then have the advantage to resist again. Like I said before, let's go back to the beginning because we have to go to the Mecca, right? I cannot tell you how many times these officers pled with him to get in the car. You had a witness that was on the stand yesterday, the older black man with the white framed glasses, who was the bystander. And I posted that video on my YouTube page today. He was the bystander. And I would tell you this, that when he testified on direct examination by the state's attorney, he actually did a great job for the defense. I understand in my experience, and this is, you get it, Genesis, whatever. I get you. I'm sorry. You're right. But I'm paraphrasing what he said. I was talking to George. I was telling George, man, you only making it worse. You can't win. George is like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm claustrophobic. I know, but you made a mistake. Look, you can't win. Just stop resisting. And understand this older gentleman, the elder in the community, said it that, in my understanding, when they put the handcuff on you, jig is up. You can't win. Notice he didn't take it where the state would love for him to take it. These police officers are racist. They're just white. They just hate the N words. He didn't do none of that. He simply said, I understand when handcuffs go on, it's going to make it worse. And this is how much the state's attorney had been supporting police to the point where they didn't recognize when their witness said something that actually supported the defense, that you were just trying to make the situation. Yes, I was just trying to make it easier, make the guy calm down. And then you even hear George on the ground making the statements that he's making. And this same man is saying, yes, you're down on the ground. You did that, in essence, you did that to yourself. You wouldn't stop. Then the same man on the stand said 5 days earlier he had met Derek Chauvin on the streets on patrol. The same man said, I understand. You guys got to get home to your family, and we got to get home to our family. You just help the defense. That's what this all is about. These four officers never called you an N word. Yes, they were verbally aggressive towards you, but that's because of the uncertainties of traffic stops. Officers have been killed plenty of times by traffic stops. And because of those uncertainties, I understand why they approached the way they did. But they've been trying to get you to calm down. They've been trying to get you in the backseat of the car. Every state has a statute that allows police officers to reverse the arrest, provided no situation occurs or they don't want to press charges. There's been times I've let a person go. We can do that. But you got to let me get to that point, because right now I've got to take this action. But you're only going to compound things and make things worse when you resist. And then we've had prior interactions with you before. And that's what they're going to go on ahead. The defense attorney, Norman, and that's his last name, he's going to introduce that into evidence where they've had prior video, prior contact with him before. And he's been in the same condition before. So, how do we know it's not a ruse? That's another thing. I am biased by my experience. I am biased having gotten the same calls with the same people. And yes, Frank, just because you're in handcuffs doesn't mean you're under arrest. I'm just saying, there's times that I've had to deal with people, and in having to deal with people, oh my God, we going back to Johnny Tip again. Here they go again. And so what happens is officers can get complacent in thinking that in the prior instances that nothing has happened, that in this instance something won't happen. And that's where you drop the guard, and that's where you get hurt. But when you don't have a jury of your peers, you got to teach them those things. And I like this defense attorney. He doesn't come off like he's attacking, but he's being nice in his strategic attack. To me, he comes off like an instructor. He has to teach. He has to teach because the jury doesn't understand. And so, as an instructor who's a very dramatic instructor who likes to shock, because I can appreciate that shock value, where I can tell you, but I'd rather show it to you because I want you to feel what I'm trying to teach you. I hope we get to that. I really do. Should George be alive? Yeah, he should. And his death is tragic. It really is. But I want you to understand something in this, that this outcome could have been way better had he not resisted. And it's people attacking me, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your innocent ignorance and your biases because of that. You're entitled to be a human and feel the pain that George is going through. But I even submit to you this: if a person put their knee and a great percentage of their weight on your neck, do you think you would last 9 minutes and 29 seconds? Do you think you would be able to move your shoulder? Is it possible that if we got you in a position that because of your resistance and our imbalance, that it would cause your body to shift from one position to another, where your original position wouldn't have exacerbated, but the continued resistance caused a position in change that exacerbated it? If you've never experienced that, you don't know. The one thing that maybe Mr. Nelson, as the defense attorney, and Hyde too, the one thing that the defense attorney did not capitalize on is in MMA fighting, there are rules. In MMA fighting, there are positions. In MMA fighting, and I get it, my man was just trying to breathe. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. I do. He was trying to breathe. But man, did he play a part in exacerbating or making worsened his already bad conditions? Yes, Arte 0311. Oh, I'm sorry, 0311. I dare not disrespect your MOS by putting a zero on that. 0311, right? Ain't no rules on the streets. And you would know that if you own the streets. I ask in my classes all the time, yes or no, you are willing to die to protect the loved one. Most of them say yes. In fact, all of them say yes. And then I go to the next question, yes or no. You are willing to die to protect your fellow man? Nope. How about that? Well, until that dynamic changes, there will be no change. Yes. Now, here's this, Christy. But I thought you, as long as you're speaking, you're breathing. Yes and no. Okay. Yes and no. Certified CPR instructor. Okay. I've got a lot of hats that I've worn and wear. You can be breathing and be talking and still be in respiratory distress. But do the officers know that's what that is? You see what I'm saying? And so if you look at Graham versus Connor, if we're looking at the objective reasonableness of the force used, given the totality of the circumstances, based upon what the officers knew at the time, he is speaking. Therefore, he is breathing because speech is a part of breath. Could it have been the case that the lack of speech and his motionless was because he gave up fighting? I heard one officer say, let's go on ahead and get him up. And I was triggered. I was like, uh-oh, state might have something. And then as soon as I looked for it some more, then the EMTs were right there. I was like, oh, okay. As soon as they said, let's get him up, the EMTs were there. The EMTs were there. And so this is why I urge you guys, for reals. I love y'all. I really do. I get attacked and I get called so many names, but people just don't understand. I'm doing this to really educate. Those who know me personally know Mike Brown has been like this long before I had a YouTube, long before I had a TikTok, a Facebook, any of this stuff. I ain't just doing this stuff for the gram or for the whatever. I've been like this, educating people. I've been an instructor for quite a while. I want y'all to understand something. I wish that you all would actually go out and get experience. I really wish you all would get out there and actually go on ride-alongs. And I'm not talking the ride-along with your neighborhood. And it says, like, it seems like your bias is truly for the cops. Yeah, Anthony. And it's also for the community, too. It's also for the community. Because I'm going to tell you something, Anthony. Let me see if I can pin your comment. Can I pin it? Yeah, I'm going to pin it right there. I want to pin it. Okay?
And no, I'm not currently law enforcement, okay? But I want you to understand that you said it seems like my bias is truly for the cops. Yeah, yeah, I say it is. I say it is. And here's the reason why. When I was growing up, I'm biased. Let me tell you what I'm biased by. I'm biased by the fact that what motivated me to become a police officer. Oh, Cameron, why am I not currently law enforcement? Because I was falsely arrested after defending my ex girlfriend against her stalker, where the person who I defended myself against lied on me and I got arrested. And then I defended myself in court, was found not guilty, and then I started my training business while the trial was still going on. I was probationary, 10 years of law enforcement experience. But when you go to a new department, you're probationary all over again, right? And so I was allowed to resign in lieu of termination. If I wanted to go back to policing, I could. I'm just having too much fun having more freedom to actually educate people. I've written children's books since then. I've impacted the lives of thousands of people and maybe even more people than that through my social media platform and bringing my business where in firearms, I can literally go anywhere. I can go in white neighborhoods. I can go in Hispanic neighborhoods. I would do well in white neighborhoods, but I brought this back to the community. I brought this back to the community. And I've helped more black people and other folks too, but I've helped more black people than you could possibly ever imagine. Possibly ever imagine. Mm-hmm. So when people say you ain't for your people, boy, my actions speak louder than these words. And the thing is, people like what they hear instead of learning from what they've heard. Yes, you can go to whatitellmyselffirst.com. You can, yes, Christy, God put me on a different path. I am the author of 14 children's books, 9 children's books, 1 adult book, and then 4 in Spanish, 14 books. Yes, Dominique, some people would call you a black token because of your unorthodox experience that defends alleged racism. And that is, look, I am so far from that. But let me tell you what I'm jaded by because what I'm biased by, because I didn't get to that. Where's my book? Here it is. Don't get offended when you see this title either. This book is called My Black Life Matters. Mm-hmm. It ain't about police brutality. That's what the cover will make you think it is. But it's not about police brutality. Malik is a kid. He's smart. But guess who he gets bullied by? He gets bullied by other black kids. Because in this book, he loves to sit at the front of the class. He loves to answer questions. But guess what? In the halls, he gets bullied by those who look like him. Right? Oh, here we go. Was he acting white? Speaking proper, right? Dismissal can seem like a track meet, running like I have slave feet. Not every day, but most days. Here we go. Why should I have to run from those who look like me? Shouldn't my black life matter? It matters to me. I just want to be free. I'm tired of running. One day, someday, I'll hope to be free. Here he is grabbing a new kid, going to Keisha's house. Keisha got touched by her mom's man friend, boyfriend. Went to her mom, tried to tell her, her mom brushed her away. Uh-huh. Malik helped her find her voice because she used to sing. You see what I'm saying? Here we go. Here's another kid right here. He wants to be smart. This is Matt, but Matt is getting his ass beat by his mom. Because it ain't that Matt's messing up in school because he wants to. He doesn't know what to make of the material. And his mom is beating him because she thinks he's really messing up. And so he befriends Malik, or Malik befriends him because he is smart. and wants to help him. He's just a new kid that ran with him. This is Keith. Keith is the bully that's been chasing after these two right here. Keith has been trying to catch up to him, right? Keith finally saw him go to Keisha's house. So Keith knocks on the door. No answer. Knocks on the door. Next thing you know, he confronts him. Come to find out, Keith is trying to be smart too. He knows Malik is smart, but he just doesn't know how to approach him. So he approached him the best way he knew how, and that was to try to beat him up. He befriends them, and they form a club called My Black Life Matters. We got traumas in our community that we don't even address. But it's a shame I should have to mask such an important book in a color and a title like this that will make you see we got traumas in our community. And that's what motivated me to become a police officer. I wasn't bullied when I was young. You couldn't catch me. But I had friends who were bullied. I had friends who were bullied. And because I had friends who were bullied, I decided to become a police officer. Because why should black people who are kids have to get bullied and terrorized in their own neighborhood? They have a right to be free. They have a right to exist. I just watched a video of a 5-year-old kid that was berated by 2 black cops. The 5-year-old kid ran away from school, and they thinking this 5-year-old kid is running away from school simply because the kid is being disobedient. No, that kid could have traumas. He doesn't have trust of some of the people in the school. It could be more to that. At 5, hell yeah, it could be more to that. I'm telling you, in the back of every book, look, y'all, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We don't learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in our community. We don't learn about that until you go through so much child and adolescent psychological trauma. And so you think about that. Black folks could be biased against white folks when white folks sit there and say, well, you should change your actions and look at the choices and do this. And then black folks are like, you're not where I am, so you don't understand. You see what I'm saying? That same perspective of you don't understand, you don't live this life, you don't, that is bias, and that's positive bias in certain respects. In part, it could be victimization too, but that's positive bias. We, us humans, we are the collection of our education and experience. We're the collection of that. I'm just telling you, I got other books too. If y'all got an impatient kid, right? Impatient patience. And I even got it in Spanish too. Little patient. She been impatient since 3. She hurts herself. And because she hurts herself, patience becomes a patient. And she has to learn patience by slowing her little fast self down. It's a wonderful book. Certain things like my first book. This was my very first book. I like me. Not everyone will like me. That is okay. I like me. I must love me first. All the stuff in here, look, we are biased by our experience. We're biased by our experience. We're biased by our experience. You know? And I think that was an honest conversation to have. I'm going to read some more of your comments as we wind this down because I want to keep it at an hour. Cameron, you do need your own channel. I subscribe. I got you, right? Derek Farham, if you were to make a verdict based on all the evidence to this point, what's your opinion? Derek, that's going to be hard to say. It's going to be hard to say. All the evidence isn't out. I still want to hear. They haven't brought the medical examiner yet. They haven't talked about. There's a lot of stuff they have not talked about yet. State's still putting on their case, and then defense has to put on their case too. All the evidence isn't out. Yeah, is it length or is it link? Don't get mad. I'm sorry. My books are on Amazon. You can go to Amazon and look up the title, What I Tell Myself First, and you'll see all of my books right there. Okay. You can go to whatitellmyselffirst.com. All of my books right there. If you want me to send them to you, you're cheaper going through me. I promise. You're cheaper going through me. Okay. Because if you buy the set, I'll give you a nice discount. You just pay for shipping, and I'll ship them right to you. I've been doing that already. Okay, so if you want that, just inbox me, message me, whatever the case may be. You're headed to Amazon. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Okay. Um, what I tell myself first. Oh, let me plug this before we finish up with the bias thing. Those of you all who have your iPhones or iPads or whatever, or even Apple Fire or Roku, stuff like that, you can go to the app Venmo, not Venmo, but Vimeo, Vimeo, okay? And you can get the videos, right? These are the videos of the actual book as well. So you don't just have let's just go to Impatient Patience for a minute. You got the book right here, and if you put in the code Kids Self Help, I'm gonna type that up. Here we go. The app is Vimeo, and just look up. Let me see. Look up. Sorry guys, hold on 1 minute. What I tell myself, and this is for free, you all. I'm giving this to you all for free. Book series, okay? And then it would be the code for any of these books is Kids Self Help, okay? And I'm just gonna put that in here and then pin it so you guys can see it, okay? There we go. So it's pinned right there. The app is Vimeo. Look up What I Tell Myself book series, and the code is Kids Self Help. This is how the books are. You can watch them on your iPad. You can watch them on your TV. Okay, you can watch them on there as well. And this is on my iPhone.
Impatient Patience by Michael Brown. In a home
very animated,
not so distant past, lived a little girl named Patience,
who
was really fast.
My daughter loves. My daughter, my little daughter Amber. Oh my God, that's that book Patience. That's that book Patience. She loves that. She really does. So these are books that I wish that I had growing up. I think you said it too. Clarity changes bias. Yes, but clarity does not make it where you are not biased. Clarity makes it to where instead of being negatively biased, you become positively biased, right? Now, I'm positively biased by the fact that I have learned something that makes me think differently. Education is the one thing that takes innocent ignorance and turns it into positive bias. I gave an analogy. That analogy before was 2 plus 2 is 5. Well, that's not correct at all. Why is it not correct? Because you are biased by your education that leads you to know, not believe, but know that 2 plus 2 is 4. Because that plus sign means that we add the integers instead of just combining them. And if you combine them, it would be something different. But as we know, 2 plus 2 is 4, right? And so I am positively biased that my education and experience leads me to know that your answer is incorrect. And I don't care how emphatic you are about that, you are wrong. Now, if that person is wrong and they want to be wrong, they're going to stand on top of that. They're going to attack you. They're going to call you all kind of names. They're going to say all kinds of things against you because you are right. That doesn't make them right, but I will leave you with this before I answer a few questions and I'm out of here. A person persuaded against their will is of the same opinion still. George Floyd was murdered. No question, no bias. Forever Shampoo, 10-4. Got it. Dominique Simon will not approve their self-taught restraint techniques and procedures ever be justified. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because there are techniques that happen and they work. And there's no complaint or there's a complaint. And then you're able to stand on top of the fact that, under these circumstances, we had to do what worked for the given situation. And things go wrong. Sometimes things happen. I will say this, though. I would not want to be in Chauvin's place. Well, I've been close before, but I would not want to be in Chauvin's place because they are going to crucify him to save multiple cities. And so if the spirit of Amber Geiger, and she's still alive, right? And she deserved what she got. But if the spirit of Amber Geiger, if the spirit of Jason Van Dyke, if the spirit of officers who have testified, including those who were wrong, right, would come to Derek Chauvin and say, hey, don't testify. Don't testify. Because if you testify and the defense puts you on the stand, state is going to have fun running cross. They are going to have fun. Just let your defense attorney do their job and let's just see what happens. I agree. Chauvin is doomed. Because if they find him not guilty, Lord, if they find him not guilty, I'm just saying, man, and thank you for that, Mark. If they find him not guilty, it's going up all across the nation. It is going up. Yeah, police departments are going to start taking a hit. People are going to stop applying, and old cops are going to retire early. Oh, yeah. And you're right, Arte. 0311, the government does want that chaos. And so, now, here we go. Could I be on the jury? Hell yeah, I could be on the jury. I could be on the jury. And I'm going to keep an open mind. Because it's apparently the case that those who have followed me knew that when this first came out, I was upset too. Surprise! I was upset too. But then as I begin to let time pass and I begin to go through voir dire and get out some of the, yes, remember a lot of people bought guns last year, even liberals. Yes, I do remember that. But then as we begin to see the leaked, right? Here we go. When I begin to see the leaked longer video, then my perspective was like, well, I could understand how this took place. Because that first viral video, oh my God, I hated seeing that. But then when I saw that leaked video of the traffic stop and all the events that led up to it, my perspective, because of my experience in education, it changed. And so because of that, I'm willing to have more of an open mind. I'm willing to. Because I want to hear and see, And then there's even the question of these experts. Right, Chrissy Mayberry. I knew Casey Anthony had something to do with her daughter's death, but the prosecution didn't prove it. And that's what it's about. The prosecution is not doing a good job of showing intent right now. The prosecution is not doing a good job of showing how murderous he was, especially looking and listening to the state's witnesses. Some of them couldn't remember. Some of them were bumbling. Some of them allowed the defense to get under their skin. Some of them began to argue the EMT. You see what I'm saying? Dude. And then you had the old guy, God bless him, who then goes on the stand and agrees with the whole reason that this situation could have calmed down. Right? Peter Dewey, I'm going to end with your comment. I got you. Got a couple things. Yes, one doubt you must have quit. I'm having flashbacks in the Baltimore incident with Freddie Gray, the pre-court settlement of $13 million and the multiple officers arrested and never convicted and charges withdrawn. The situation with Philando Castile, right? How Officer Yanez was then charged. But guess what? After he was charged, He was found not guilty. He was found not guilty. So don't be surprised. There is still the possibility that Derek Chauvin could be found not guilty because one juror is adamant. Yeah, what happened was tragic, but I don't see any criminal intent. I see a situation that went wrong. I don't see any criminal intent. Don't be surprised if you get a juror that feels that way. Me, what I am going to do is reserve judgment. But I am going to talk about these things as they begin to progress. I'm getting out of here so y'all can get some sleep. I can get some sleep. I got day 2 of my concealed carry class. Get your butt in somebody's concealed carry class. It's no one's job to protect you but you. Yeah, I think so too, Frank. I think that he will be found guilty to keep the peace, right? I'm telling you, Frank, you remember, bro. Look, you remember. Remember Jason Van Dyke? Remember that day that it was verdict day? Remember how Chicago was like, oh, it's about to go up. It's about to go up. And then as soon as he was found guilty, there was I remember that day. I was right in the middle of a CPR instructor's recertification. And I'm good at CPR and teaching, and I teach it so frequently, they knew I knew what I was doing. And so I was able to get out there and skedaddle and get to where I needed to go because we expected if there was a not guilty verdict, Chicago was going to go up. And as soon as he was found as soon as he was found guilty of second degree but not first degree, some people didn't like that, but there was a collective sigh of, okay, they got what they wanted. The city is saved. On the other hand, Jason's ass was stupid, right? He was stupid for taking the stand. Oh my God. He was so stupid for taking the stand. And the stuff that he testified to and the stuff that Amber got, look, they earned those convictions. They earned them. They earned them. Plus what Jason did was wrong. It was just wrong. There was no reason for any of that. It was wrong. Okay? I'm out of here. You guys stay safe. Love you.